Hey, Russ Miller here. I'm in Bournemouth, England at Absolute Music, and this is the first date of the UK tour for the Mapex Saturn IV drums. I've been using the Saturn IV pretty much daily now since December or January of 2013, and it's been a real pleasure. It's a great instrument, and one of the things about the Saturn drums for me, that it was a great learning experience for me because the Saturn drums have a lot of presence to them, especially in the low range and the high range. And so it's sort of like a natural EQ, like a natural smiley EQ. You know, when you're EQing things, a lot of times you end up with the smiley face EQ because you're putting bottom and high end in it. And the drums sort of do that naturally. So they record really well. They translate over the mics really, really well. And for me, it's just been so easy capturing the sound of the drums. I do a lot of different session work with a lot of different guys, and one thing stands out about the Saturn drums. You know, Jerry Watts, one of the premier bass players in the world, I work with him quite a bit, and I was on a session for a movie with Jerry, and I hadn't said anything about switching to the Saturn IV kit at all, and we played the first take and everything was fine. We came back in the control room to listen to it, and Jerry said to me, you know, what's going on with your drums, man? Like, I'm like, why? What is it? And he's like, well, I sound so much better today than I did before. Like, like he sounded better, not, you know, and I was like, wow, that's really interesting. What do you mean? And he's like, well, there's a certain sympathetic ambience that isn't there, and it's allowing my bass to be really clear, but the drums are big and fat and punchy, but not overly ringy and not overly ambient in a way where, you know, you end up with this sort of like little sympathetic roar through everything. And a lot of times we would have to mute the tom channels when you're mixing, you know, erase the tom channels just into the point where you hit it because of those little sympathetic rings. And we don't really have to do that with the drums. They're still as big a sound as any. They're fat, they got the top end and the attack, but they're very present, and they speak and get out of the way. And I thought that was a really interesting thing for a bass player to say, that, you know, he sounded better because the drums were in the right place at the right time, and, you know, it really wasn't stepping on him.
If I come up here and I just play a bunch of drum licks out of time, I don't care if they're ridiculously fast, like the fastest thing you've ever seen, right? You're going to be, whoa, that was fast. Play it faster. You know, I mean, what's the next thing that has to happen? Because there's nothing to base the fact that that was exciting on, right? That fast drum fill, was that the exciting part? Do we have something more to look forward to? Or was that something that we should be like, wow, that was awesome? Because what happens is, no matter what level of chops you have, and trust me, I love the drums. I practice chops and fills and hand stuff and all that. But at the end of the day, there's a difference between playing great drums and playing great music on the drums. If any of you want to be in a band, if you want to play on records, if you want to play on movies, you want to do tours, whatever it is, the best musicians who play drums are the ones who work in those situations. Not the best drummers. There's thousands of great drummers, but there's not that many great musicians that play the drums. It's 4 plies of maple, 2 plies of walnut. And the thing about the drums for me, that it's sort of that classic recording sound that we knew. It's punchy, it's fat. The walnut makes it warm, like normally we would associate with a birch drum. But the walnut kind of warms the thing up. The 16 for me is the key, because you want it to be big and fat, but you don't want it to ring forever. Because, then you got the sound guy going, you put duct tape on your floor top, that kind of stuff. So, sound men aren't allowed to talk to the drummer. And I'm just joking, Mark. Thank you for your help, Mark, by the way. It sounds great. But the floor tom, you want as much sound as you can, but you want it to get in and get out. This sound. It's fat, but it's short, right? So I want a big tone. I want a lot of bottom, but I don't want it to go boo. Because what happens is, when all the toms have all that length to them all the time, you get this weird sympathetic vibration happening. When you're playing the drums, there's this roar, this sort of roar that's happening over all the mics. And it goes onto tape, and then it also can cause feedback. A lot of times that's what's causing feedback through the PA. So when these things, man, I never have problems with it. When we set up, right? We set it up, I didn't do anything. I put the mic on, I turn up the fader. We're going, well, how loud do we want it? That's it. There's no EQ. Oh, that one's ringing. Tape that. There's none of that stuff.
I've used them on quite a few things. If you guys are fans of sci-fi, there's a TV show called Continuum on the Sci-Fi Network. It's in its 2nd season. That's all Saturn IV. There's a movie called the new Percy Jackson movie, the sequel in the Percy Jackson movies. That's all Saturn IV. A movie called The Colony. There was a movie called Man of Steel, the new Superman movie. That's all Saturn IV. And So It Goes is a new movie with Diane Keaton, and I actually played all the stuff with Diane Keaton when she's singing in the movie. That's all Saturn IV. The new Daniel Bedingfield record. There's also, if you guys are fans of global music, Dr. L. Subramaniam, who's like the most famous violin player from India. So myself and Stanley Clarke and Larry Coryell and Herbie Hancock, we all did his new record, and that's all Saturn IV. And I just recorded a new Arrival Trio record of my catalog with my touring band, and we used it on there. That'll be coming out soon. And several other movies, and you can always check out my discography at russmiller.com. But everything really since December of 2012 on is all the new Saturn IV drums, so you get a chance to listen to them in context, and hopefully you get a chance to check them out wherever you're at and see them in a store near you. And happy to be here in the UK, and looking forward to the rest of the tour. We're going to get started here at Absolute Music in a few minutes, so thanks for having me.